What's going on, guys, and welcome back. We've got probably the darkest season of Marvel Snap with the Black Order kicking off Tuesday. We have 2 new cards and the giant patch of the month. It's going to be a crazy week in Snap. Alex and I are going to break down our thoughts of Black Swan, the newest season pass card, and every single Black Order card with her. On top of that, we're going to break down the most recent OTA and what was its impact on the Marvel Snap meta. We're going to talk about that all today, more on this episode of the Snapchat. Yo, are we wearing the same thing? What? No, they won't believe us. I have it recording right now, and we're showing. Hey guys, guess what? This is the beginning of the call. We can't do this. We look like a NBA team. What?
We absolutely have to do this.
Okay, fine. We're doing it. Let's go to the intro. And as always, I am joined by Mr. Alex Coccia. He got the memo today. We are wearing our warm-ups before we head to the court on our NBA basketball game. Buddy, we have the beginning of February, a brand new season, a brand new balance patch, 2 new cards coming out Tuesday. There's a lot hitting us this week, man. I'm a little nervous for how much content's about to come out. We just had the OTA too.
Yeah, it's like actually a legitimately crazy time to be a Marvel Snap player. There is so much happening here, and it's not just a balance patch. I'm going to correct you there because it's a content patch.
Yep.
Like, I am most interested in seeing what they add and how they improve the game. Like, is this the month where we get like the selectable borders, right? Could it be the month? I don't know. I really don't know, but I would love if February was the month. But hey, guys, remember we were talking about on the roadmap? It's here, baby. Let's go. Like, I'm actually really excited about what this patch might hold. And of course, there's a balance element to it as well. But most importantly, we are getting 2 major hitters coming this week, and we're going to be talking about it today on the Snapchat.
This is always my favorite episode each month. We start the seasons. We first reflect on the last season, and then we start and just look at all the new cards coming. And yes, okay, like the OTA, we'll get to that. That's going to be the last subject. It wasn't the craziest OTA, but then I keep reminding myself, like, it's fine. We have so much coming Tuesday. And yes, we've got the monthly patch. But the cards that are coming, which are going to be our first subject, they're super interesting. They're going to definitely change up some things into what is already probably one of the more diverse metas that we've had in a little bit. Feels like a lot of decks can win right now. We're kind of seeing that through the stats and just through playing the game, bud. But overall, how was Infinity Conquest? How was the last week of January? And overall, how was the Marvel snapping?
It was great, honestly. I've played more Marvel Snap in the last 2-3 weeks than I've ever played in my career. For some reason, like I guess with Twitch drops and with the excitement going on and with some of the brewing I've been doing, I played so much, like so much. And it's quite interesting to think that, like, you know what, I gotta tell you, Cozy, playing a lot, felt like I was playing better. I felt like I was good. I was on top of the meta. I knew what was up. I mean, I was my crafts were a little tighter. Like, it's funny how, like, sometimes the best cure to being better at a game is just playing a hell of a lot of it, because that's exactly what I did, and I felt pretty damn good doing it.
Dude, I mean, between, the Twitch drops hitting, a good amount of new card testing, and then, I've been streaming a little bit more myself. I got the Apple Vision Pro. Dude, have you seen this thing? It's insane. It's the future, man, I tell you.
I've seen 2 things about the Apple Vision Pro. 1, I watched your video when you were playing it on the moon, which I thought was absolutely hilarious. And 2, I saw this clip of some guy within a cyber truck, like driving like with the thing, just doing this. I was like, what kind of dystopian future are we?
We're so screwed. It's over. Yeah, when I saw that, I'm like, it's over for mankind. It's done. So we're over. Yeah, I would say, dude, it's watching a movie in it was one of the craziest things I've ever done. I watched Infinity War in 3D in like the middle of nowhere, wherever I was. I couldn't tell you the location, but it was just like mind-blowing. I watched yours and Dexter's stream, also really cool, like just like having you guys blown up big. And then I played Snap, man. I played Snap. That was definitely like playing Galactus on the moon. I mean, it doesn't get any cooler than that. So definitely fun. Plan to do a lot of cool stuff content-wise. I got about I don't know, like 30,000 people motion sickness the other day, but it didn't exactly. It's hard to put into words and translate like what's going on in there or whatever. But going back, my family's had Apple stuff since like the beginning of Steve Jobs, so had to get it. But anyway, man, we got a lot to break down on this side of the Snapchat. What are we breaking down on Alex's side?
On my side of the Snapchat, we'll be discussing the January cards in review. We'll be giving our final thoughts, our final ratings on the cards that came out this past month. There was 6 of them. There's a lot to talk about. We'll also be talking about our favorite cards at every cost this past season, reflecting on the cards we played and the cards that we loved. And then finally, as always, the Snapchat mailbag.
Well, man, let's go ahead. We have a lot to break down. This is always a long episode, so if you like the long ones, you're at the right place. We've got 2 new cards coming. And we're going to start there, and then we're going to get to the rest of the Black Order season. Now, Black Order in its own really cool. Nothing says I love you, happy Valentine's Day, like the most dark season that we've probably had in Snap. You love to see it. Black Swan is going to be the season pass card. Now, they just released like the video, and she definitely got upgraded from what she was. She was a 2-3, guys. Now she's a 3-5. On reveal, until the end of your next turn, your 1-cost cards cost 0. And, I've been seeing a lot on this card. I actually almost tweeted something out, took it back, stewed on it a little bit more. There's a lot. All these cards, man, there's so much to break down. But let's start with the season pass, man. Initial star rating impressions, and then we'll get to everything. As we always do, I'll let you start.
I mean, initial impressions, and I'm prepared to be wrong, but like I can't help but feel this is a 5-star card. Like I know I just don't know what else to say other than at a 3-5 premium stat line, we've seen how powerful a 0-costed ability is. Like so many cards have been nerfed in the past to take away that effect. I don't see how this card underperforms. Like I don't see the world where this card is not good. I think it's going to bring a very interesting meta because like maybe it's the Sandman, the Leech meta, we'll have to see. But then again, releasing on the same day is another card that we'll talk about that might protect from that. So like I think that there is almost no way that this card can underperform. And because I'm saying that, it's going to be a 1-star card.
Yeah, right. Okay, so here's my thought. Like when I first saw it, I actually had a tweet drafted up, and I put like, power creep has never been so obvious in Snap. I hate it because we just in the OTA, it just said we have Ghost at a 3-5 because we feel like her effect is a kind of a bad effect in the current meta, and that's why we justified the 5 stat line. But then we just get our first 3-5 really in Snap with a positive effect attached to it. However, the more that I was doing some thinking, right? So I had a 5-star card. I was like, duh, this is a no-brainer. This is just an OTA later on to make her worse. And I was kind of like bummed about it. I think I'm going to give her a 4-star because the more I thought about it, so yes, the actual value, I mean, 3-5 is as good as you get, right? It's why we play a lot of cards. When I started to think about her ability, though, is when I started to think about, well, maybe it's not as good as I think. Now, first of all, if you have a deck with so many 1-cost cards, right? You're kind of just relying on Hitmonkey, okay? To be your pop-off. Maybe Bishop, okay? A couple other cards in there. I think Bounce and Thanos, she could definitely be 5-star worthy, right? Because both those decks are doing other things to capitalize on the 1-cost, right? Maybe Zoo can push that as well with just a 5 power stat. But do you know what I mean? If you have too many 1-cost cards, it's like, right? And then if you have too few of 1-drops, then you really, like, I don't know how much Black Swan is going to get her value. But she's already the 3-5, so then it doesn't really matter if you're just playing her on curve or that 1-cost. So I totally see that. But I think I'm going to give her a 4-star because of that. Does that make sense at all, or am I just coping?
No, I think it does make sense. I mean, the card gamer in me says, like, I don't see how this is a bad card. It cannot be a bad card, right?
No.
The only thing that I was thinking about, like, holding it back was that, like, what's the draw engine look like? Because, like, you're just going to build a deck with tons of 1-cost cards. You're playing on pretty much curve if it's, like, a mid-range aggressive style deck.
Yep.
But you play Black Swan, like, how many 1-drops are you still holding, right? So the design of the deck and the considerations on how you kind of, like, actually pop off with it, I think it's going to be important, but like I just don't see how this will be an underperforming card.
Board space, locations too, like that, there's things that like come into play. I feel like with being able to play free 1-cost cards for 1 turn, right? It's telegraphed, you have Killmonger, you have Mobius being the biggest counters. Just get right to it, guys. Those are obviously the big counters that we're expected to see against Black Swan. But can I just, 4-star is still a really, really good card. Looking at our final rankings when we talk on your side, I mean, I was, pretty harsh on some of the rankings that I gave earlier on. I think 4-star, maybe 4.5. The value's there, though, and you love cards like Polaris when you don't have really any use for it, but you're like, I mean, I'm just going to get the stat stick. Why not? And that's going to be great. My concern about all these cards we're going to talk about today is that Thanos is already in such a good spot, and all these cards continue to fuel the Mad Titan, right? So that is kind of concern, and maybe we see something addressed in the upcoming patch. But regardless, lots to break down about her super interesting card with Black Swan. 4-star, 5-star-ish, somewhere in that area for Alex. Let's start talking about the combos and where we see her being effective. Now, as always, Season Pass, we know it's worth the value, Alex. Right off the bat, man, where are you playing Black Swan?
Where I see her being very effective is in a bounce based list like you had discussed. I think bounce has been one of those lists that have like continuously just made immense value. Now, I think one of the major winners of this, now obviously Beast is a major contributor, but Beast kind of does the same thing as Black Swan. I mean, not really, but to some degree. But what I think actually really helps is going to be Falcon. I think Falcon is going to get a bump up here because if you're able to like play your cards down, Falcon them up, and then like now you have them and then you're to, play them again maybe afterwards, right? So like maybe you play on curve, you Falcon them up, and then you play Black Swan, and now it's like you've played Beast, but you actually played Falcon. I mean, the way I described it in, like out loud was not as kind of intuitive as I envisioned it in my head, but what I'm trying to say is Black Swan played in with the cards that you've now Falconed will give you that zero cost Beast style effect, right?
Yeah.
And I think that it gives you an additional line on how you can approach a bounce based deck, which has always been a big brain deck, right? So there's that line, which I think could be very key.
I mean, what's cool is outside of, I think, Proxima Midnight, every single card we'll talk about today encourages a new way of looking at deck design. And I think that's what has me really excited about it. Black Swan, it's like, you look at bounce decks, and we've looked at Havoc and things like that. It's a tight list. Just like Destroy, it's a tighter list. But when you're sitting at a 3-5 and you're just really fueling that engine even more so, and then you've got, let's just tie it all together, whether he ends up with the bounce list or not, there's just no way that Hitmonkey is not going to be involved here because of the giant pop-off. Now, I said earlier, this is kind of the only card you're relying on, but okay, who cares, man? It's going to get absolutely colossally huge. You got to love that right off the rip, right? So I think, I don't know about you, but when Hitmonkey was popping back in April, May of last year, I loved that. I love when Hitmonkey feels pretty good, especially now because there's so many more diverse decks out there. So I think you're definitely right.
One thing worth noting about Hitmonkey as well with Black Swan is that if you're in a meta that you're seeing lots of Leech or lots of Salmon or something, Black Swan is going to give you an opportunity to like try to pop off on turn 5 or like play in advance of the counter that you're expecting, right? Because again, like it's a three costed 5. You play it, and if you have Hitmonkey in your hand and you're holding a couple ones, then like that's probably enough, right? That's probably enough in a game where you might be disadvantaged from a match perspective. So like I think it provides a lot of versatility because the 1-drops are free, so you can squeeze it out like in a turn where okay, this is the turn I got to attack. And what's interesting is you bring up Hitmonkey was in a prior Spotlight cache, and Black Swan was a 2/3. Had we known Black Swan was going to be a 3/5, Hitmonkey would have risen in value in that Spotlight cache. Am I right?
Yeah, I mean, you would think so. It's funny because I've seen, like, I even just said it, like, oh, it's telegraphed a bit, but it almost just doesn't matter, right? Like, Hitmonkey's somewhat telegraphed too, Bounce is somewhat telegraphed, and if you don't have a plan to stop it, you can't. Now, it's only 12 cards that you have, so forming the deck around this, I think it's going to be tougher, a tougher assignment than people might think. But I see, like, the thing she does well, man, is that at 3/5, people are like, well, if you draw the last turn, you don't get value. It's like, okay, you still get a 3/5 though. Like, what are we missing here, right? Don't think Surfer's going to use it all that much. 1-drops, we don't see a ton in there. Maybe you could get a Nova, free Nova down. I was thinking about this a little bit, Alex, and maybe we can get to it later on. It wasn't really meant for Surfer, but the reason I brought up Nova, I think Destroy has really unique synergy with her. Dawkins can feel awkward because of his shard. Like, what do you do with the shard? Obviously, this kind of solves the problem of always having to kill X-23. You can get the Deadpool out now with your Null, whatever you want to do there. I think it's definitely interesting to play with Destroy. Although, once again, does it make that list, right?
Yeah, you're able to play Angel as well, which is great. Always a consideration for Destroy. But I do definitely see that being like a consideration. But one thing I want to say, I want to come back to something you mentioned, the idea of playing it on turn 6, okay? Great point about the versatility of Black Swan. Let's talk about a couple 3/5s and turn 6. How comfortable are you playing Viper on turn 6?
Yeah, pretty much never. You're sitting a card over. Just happened to me. Yep, not
what
a great
about
one.
Deathlock?
Yep, you're going to kill all your cards. Definitely not going to happen.
Oh, Wave.
Yeah, sure. I guess Wave would be like if I had nothing else to play, but you're playing Wave in decks that you want to ramp, so you would have cards to play.
Exactly, right? Like, not as bad, right? But like, there's usually significant down. Even something like a Spider-Man.
You could ruin everything. You could ruin everything. Yeah, exactly. I've thought this. I've won matches because someone played a Spider-Man. I'm like, hey, thank you. You put my Devil Dinosaur in the winning lane. I appreciate that, you know? So you're right. This does have zero effect.
That's important to realize, right? Like, it's a 3/5 with no legitimate downside. Like even like Polaris could steer you wrong if you pull that 8 powered Carnage into the location. You trade -3 on that play, right? Like there's a lot to consider here, and that's why like going from a 2/3 to a 3/5 was a very significant buff. And it's worth noting that just before we recorded on a Q&A, Glenn actually said that they tested Black Swan and it felt weak at 2/3. Which is interesting. And that gave me some pause to think, well, is this effect not as strong as I thought it was? Or like, I don't know. Like, it was kind of an interesting thing to hear Glenn say, no, it was too weak at 2/3.
Let me tell you some of the other combos I have here, and just tell me if you think at the end of the day, she's just a Thanos card or not. And that's what I really want to know from this. Is it just a Thanos card, or can we actually slot her into some archetypes? Now, I'll move on from Destroy, but I just wanted to say, I think it's interesting that on technically turn 4, you could play her on 3. Turn 4, you could drop down your X-23, your Deadpool, for free on top of a Venom to eat her up. So I do think there are some cool play lines outside of just the Deadpool to get free power and, X-23, destroy that. You go into the next turn with more energy. Definitely something to be able to play, a 6 drop on 5 now, no matter what. Obviously, draws will be dependent. But dude, when I was thinking about it, what other deck or 1-drops, when I'm looking through all these 1-drops, what decks actually work with Black Swan? You gotta say it. You gotta think it, man, that there is a world that the Tiny Movers deck, the small moving deck, the Dagger, the Human Torch, it probably involved with Bounce once again, so we were kind of on that subject. Having these enablers for free is insane to me. I mean, that's really crazy, because that's wombo combos, right? You can really start to get things popping.
It does, absolutely. And I actually was playing in my head about the idea of, okay, if you Black Swan on turn 1, on turn 3, on turn 4, like you could theoretically play, Iron Fist, Vulture, and a Spider, not Spider,
Ghost Spider, yeah,
Ghost Spider, right? And like you've actually just popped off Vulture there, right? But I'm like, wait a minute, like, does that really help that much? Because like you can still just do Iron Fist the turn before. Like it's an added card, and I don't know if it really accelerates the movement archetype in the way it wants. But like it's undeniable that some of the cards that really help enable and surprise in move are the 1-cost cards in both Iron Fist and specifically Ghost Spider.
Yeah, but you made a great point, right? Hercules was fun, but ultimately, when you draw Hercules and then you have your other cards that want to move for the power, that means it's another space that you're not drawing the card that can actually move them. So, like, we see this all the time, right? Things look on paper really good. In practicality, you're like, great, I have a Black Swan, but I also have my Heimdall and I also have, my Craven or something. You know what I mean? It's like, what am I going to do with this hand at this point? Kind of awkward. Whereas, like, maybe her at 2 cost would have fit into that mold a tad bit better, actually, than just the better stat line. I've talked about it before. I don't think move needs a lot of stats because they build up anyway so high up and so crazy. So definitely good point there. The last 2 thoughts that I had outside of just Thanos, I think we can end on Thanos for the Black Swan. I mean, we've got to talk about Zoo, right? This is, not saying it's the last chance for Zoo to be competitive, but you would think that this is an absolute exploding Zoo card. A card that you could play, on turn 4, playing Blue Marvel and everything all at once, right? To me, that seems really, really strong. And we have play lines like Dazzler, Nebula, Sunspot on 1, Dazzler on 2, maybe Chimera on 3, or Black Swan. I think it's kind of interesting.
Yeah, no, there definitely is. And the lines that I was playing with was Chimera 3, Kazar on turn 4, and then what you do is Black Swan and Dazzler on turn 5.
Okay.
On turn 6, you have the option of playing Blue Marvel plus a whole bunch of 1s.
Yep.
Or you can do a whole bunch of 1s plus Hitmonkey, right? For very elevated attacks. I do think there's some legitimate lines for Zoo.
And it's already kind of on the bubble. It's definitely like a tier 3 deck, but it's kind of flirting with being a decent deck nowadays. And what's cool about it is what I love about Zoo and where it kind of fits with Black Swan is you just alluded to it. There's so many cheap cards that if you don't get Blue Marvel, then you Dazzler, you Black Swan. If you don't get that, you can Black Swan and play 1-cost cards. Like there are multiple options. Hell, maybe this is the max copium I could ever take in one go, buddy. But I'm just saying, is this the return? Is it happening? Can we see, spoiler, hold on, strong guy?
This is copium.
Just saying, it'd be easy to empty the hand. You can empty the hand easier than everybody and get yourself up. What is that? 3-9. Hold the phone.
Okay, listen, I'm all for it. If you can come up with a broken strong guy brew, then I'm all for it, Cozy. But this might be a little bit of hopium because like strong guy has never been playable, and even after the buffs, yeah, Killmonger of course is gonna say hello, but that's a whole other. That's why we have Kyera. Come on, that's why we have Kyera. But I mean, strong guy. I mean, you're not wrong. You should be able to like just dump your hand, right? But then I don't know, man. That seems like a lot of work.
If this doesn't make him good, it's over for strong guy. Like, you're getting a card that legit is like begging you to dump your hand. And if we can't make it happen, I give up. I give up on the muscles here. It's just not gonna. I think his name's Guido, maybe. But anyway, he looks great. You should go for that haircut, dude. You already have the muscles.
Oh, the haircut, like just the single. Is that a single bang? What is even? It's like a.
It's like a smoke puff. Yeah, it's a bang. I mean, this is why he's ripped. He's kind of compensating, right? Like, he was not blessed with the hairline, so he's like, all right, I'll just get incredibly yoked. Kind of skips the leg day a little bit too. He's kind of.
I was gonna say those legs, man. When I used to work out, like this was a whole other point of my life, not in the last 10 years anyway. I was all legs, baby. That's all I did. Squat rack all day long. But no, not anymore.
Yeah, definitely, definitely not. So strong guy Zoo, definitely we could see maybe go from a tier 3 to a tier 2, right? But more so than that. Let's go to Thanos, right? So not only Thanos Zoo, but just Thanos as a whole. This is always a good Thanos card. I mean, how do you not love Black Swan in a Thanos deck? No matter what, you get to play the stones for free. You get to get the draw engine for free. You can play into Lockjaw for free. What are we doing here? Why would you not want to have this card? And you can fit it, right? There's always that spot for the 3 cost. The Mobius that we've had in there. We've had different cards that kind of floated into Thanos decks. Not to mention Blobla's the 5 power if you don't draw Black Swan. It's just a win, man. It's just a win card.
And the key thing about it too is it's coming down on 3, right? That allows you to just like dump everything. Because you're right, 3's been like kind of like the flex spot to some degree, and Mobius has been the core flex in the current Thanos-based decks. You could very easily take Mobius out and put Black Swan in, and like, what do you lose? Pretty much nothing. You play her on 3, and then on turn 4, you can basically dump the rest of your stones, draw through your hand. Right?
Yeah.
It's pretty impressive.
I think we're already seeing like Destroy's always so common, but it's like to the most it's ever been this season. We have a lot of Destroy decks out there, very competitive. But I also think this is the season where everybody just kind of starts their deck build with this guy, and then they kind of go on from there, because this just shuts down Black Swan to the fullest degree. You get to play it on curve. It just is going to feel, we've been talking about Mobius forever now, but he's finding ways to slot into so many different decks. Love him to death, and I definitely think this will be his best season. So Black Swan, definitely going to be an interesting card. No question, it's going to be one of those cards that will continue to build unique things in the future, and it's not gonna whiff, right? Because just the stat line alone, we could just remove the ability, and it's still not the worst card in the world, right? So Black Swan is the season pass card, Alex. Now, same week, same day, Tuesday, Supergiant, and this is probably the most complex, the most fun discussion one of this Snapchat today. Guys, she is a 4-cost, 5-power card. On reveal, all cards played next turn do not reveal until the game ends. It's like an invisible woman for everything on that next turn. Very crazy, very interesting effect. Was nerfed pretty heavily from what she was like originally introduced. Thank God. Some highlights right off the bat. Very kind of crap power for the 4-cost stat. No question about it. Let's break it down, dude. I asked on Twitter, I asked everybody rank the cards in order. You wouldn't believe, Alex, there was no consistency. Zero. I mean, there was people that had Supergiant at 1, Supergiant at the worst card of the month, no question. People thought she was broken. People hated her. Where do you land on Supergiant?
I had a very difficult time evaluating this card. Every once in a while, we get a card like this. This felt similar to me as what's the, oh my God, I can't remember her name. Nico. It was very similar to Nico, where I was like, how do you even evaluate this card without testing it properly? And the reason why that's so difficult is because not only can it be used offensively, but it's also defensive. And it's also very dependent on what your opponent's playing, what they're expecting to play on turn 5, or even on turn 6 for that matter, right? So there is a lot to consider with the way this card works. And right off the top, I'll tell you that I kind of copped out and I gave her a 3-star because I'm like, I actually am not sure power level wise where this card's going to fall. The main thing that I really saw was, of course, it's going to be very preventative and defensive against cards like Leech and Sarah, right? Which can be super awesome. And obviously, we have Jane Foster, which has gained in popularity, which is negatively impacted by this as well. I just don't know if the defensive side warrants it being in a deck. I mean, I'd be interested in hearing your thoughts because, like, this has been one of those cards where I feel that it's going to require a lot of testing to determine its true power level.
Everybody has to get their hands on this card to really see what it becomes. Funny enough, I gave it a 3.5, so we're not far off. I give it almost a perfect rating in control decks, in some of the decks that you want her to be in, and I'll get to that in a moment and why I think that's just going to work naturally. She can't, like, you look at her, she almost reminds me of, take it all the way back to when before Ghost came out. Remember, we were kind of like losing our minds. We're like, oh, that sounds like such a cool effect. And then nobody played her until even now, recently. However, I think she's a game winner too. She's a game winner too, and she's also the perfect combo card for a couple of decks. So very, very complex. However, I think defensively, it's going to be way better than you think. Really, what she is, and why I gave her a 3.5, but in general, why she exists in Snap is she is a release valve for a lot of these decks if things go wrong. Leech has been a terrorizing soul in the meta. We don't have an answer to Leech. There's nothing you can do to stop Leech. Now you obviously have that answer to what you alluded to. You just said it. We have Jane Foster. We have Vision. We have Sarah decks. We have Nimrod, Professor X. Even forecast cards that like to play a little bit later. Maybe you can stop something like Phoenix Force if you play with Zabu, or Loki, or Shuri. There's a lot of decks that can really stop this, right? Or she can really prevent everything that deck's trying to do. And then there's decks that just don't give a flying damn that you played a not efficient power card on the turn 4, and now you're probably screwed because you have no way to make up said power, right? Like, that's the two alternatives. It depends where the meta's at. If the meta's all about Sandman or whatever it is, or whatever the 5s that you're trying to stop, Jane Foster, you have the answer. Supergiant just shuts those decks down to a crawling dead hole. Like, Beta Ray Bill's dead if this card is out there and popular, right? Like, that's just the way it's probably going to work. It's puzzling, man. It's really puzzling, right? Like, I have a lot of synergistic card combos, but I think we can both agree. What's the biggest one here?
For me, I'm going to say Taskmaster. I don't know if that's what you had on your list, but for me, Taskmaster is one that I've been really trying to brew with because I had this idea of like, hey, if you play Supergiant and then on turn 5 you play Taskmaster, that means on turn 6, if I drop like a Hulk or something, he's going to reveal at the end of the game and pick up that Hulk power or the blob power or whatever. I think it's a pretty cool offensive weapon with Taskmaster.
Yeah, so it's really cool to ignite the engine back into Taskmaster again and talk about how do you make up that power. Right? How do you make up only dropping 5? Well, you drop an effing blob, you know, to get an average of 20 or whatever, and then you have 20 in 2 lanes. You're probably looking pretty good. The other side of that is something like Destroyer. Okay, so we all know Destroyer only destroys revealed cards. So if you drop this bad boy down, and then into the game, Taskmaster will copy Destroyer, and you could have a Bucky Barnes deck. And we've actually seen some Destroyer decks kind of making their way back a little bit, right, Alex? Another cool kind of thought, right? Like, you could make this semi work. And I think there are some really cool things with Taskmaster. Definitely gets me excited. Love that you pointed that out. I had that in one of the deeper combos, so glad that we can get that out. And just in general, really Hitmonkey can work largely the same with that as well. Hitmonkey can get up to kind of crazy buku. We saw Invisible Woman Taskmaster decks once upon a time, right? And this is kind of that.
I mean, the key about Invisible Woman, however, was that it was purely for your offensive play. Like, this card, Supergiant, has that defensive component, and I think it can be played by surprise. Like, I don't think you need to orchestrate the fact that you're going to drop this card. Like, I think it's going to go in a wide variety of decks in a way that, like, it feels like a 4 cost you can slot in, but you are paying a heavy price in terms of tempo. Like the card does not have enough stats to warrant you whiffing on that turn 5.
I mean, but here's the thing. This is why I said in control decks, I think she's the best card. I mean, she's like a 5-star in control decks. Is like, first of all, let's just say it all together, guys. Alioth, right? Like if you have priority, which it'll be hard because of Supergiant, but the way control works, sometimes you can lock down a lane, whatever you need to do. You have the Storm lane, you're winning with a Nebula. That's going to be giant for just that in general. But even things like Legion and hiding your Legion and like there's just some really cool play lines. She's definitely, by far, out of the last few months, going to be bringing inspiration right there with Grandmaster, actually, I guess, to just deck design and the way these decks work, right? What I hope we don't see is just another whatever whatever deck is killing it, right? Thanos or what, and then we just put her in there. I want to see some super unique decks built for the purpose of making Supergiant work. And dude, there's even more combos. I've got a couple here that I wanted to roll off. You obviously Zabu, not bad. Daredevil is definitely cool. Definitely some cool synergy with Daredevil because you can actually see what they're playing on 5, right? Alioth that if you need to in that control build.
The Alioth component is huge, actually. Now, I want to kind of circle back on that because what you can do with this card is, let's say you earn initiative turns 1, 2, and 3, right? So you can give up a little bit of power on turn 4 to drop Supergiant. That means that going into turn 5, you're going to have initiative, right? And that means the cards are not going to reveal. So you're going to maintain that initiative into turn 6, which allows you to play Alioth and wipe out the board.
Yep.
And it makes 1, 2, and 3, those turns, extremely important for setting up your board state so that you could take advantage of that play. Now, if you thought Alioth was bad before, imagine it knocking out 2 full turns worth of plays because not only are their turn 5 cards unrevealed, but if you have initiative, their turn 6 cards won't be revealed either.
And then the Daredevil right on curve, so you see exactly what they're playing, and you're like, okay, I know if I need to Alioth the left lane, because that's where they had their Taskmaster, or hey, the only lane they can play in their blob is this one. I'll just kill the blob, and it becomes a, whatever, a 3-power card from the whatever they played before, right? So I do think this has the potential to be very scary. I do think the person that is, not playing Supergiant, though, will have the option, if they have Alioth, though, to sometimes come out on top and then kind of like spit it right back in your face, right? Like that's going to happen at times.
No, definitely it has to. And I mean, when you think about it, right, the initiative in Marvel Snap, Alioth really puts a fixation on initiative. And like you mentioned Daredevil, that's great for scouting, but like in my head, I'm like, if I'm doing something like a Lizard. Right, Lizard is one of the best. Like, what if you build completely for initiative? What if you go Lizard, Mr. Fantastic, and you just try to earn that turn 4 initiative, and then you have the turn 5 and 6 following up with the Alioth, right? So I do see so many deck building considerations with this card, but again, at a 4-5 stat line, I think that's weaker than people are giving it credit for, and I wonder if that holds it back.
But here's another one. Like, this is where I think people need to understand. Think about your turn 5 plays. And think about just hiding things from your opponent. I did want to look at her power and like, how do you spin that power to be decent? If you look at Cerebro decks, man, C5 is always right up there with competitive play. You've got the Doctor Doom. You have now potentially ways to kind of like hide your Cerebro and maybe get that out, or just playing Cerebro early and they kind of don't know what you're doing. You have the Lizard with 2. You have Martyr with the 1-drop, or the C5 is really good, and then you're making up for that 5, the lack of power.
Yeah, like C5 is funny because after Miss Marvel got moved to 4, C5 enjoyers were like in shambles, absolute shambles. So maybe Supergiant takes you to that next level. It's possible because I mean, the tech element of obviously obstructing your opponent, hiding your turn 5 play could be cool. It definitely could be cool, and you could set it up so like you play Mystique and Cerebro out of order, right? You can play Mystique on turn 5. With your Lizard, right? Like Lizard Mystique, and then they don't even know that they should be stacking that location to negatively impact the Lizard. Mystique will, no, don't do that, not in that order. Oh, damn, that would have been a bad idea. But you play Cerebro on turn 5, and then Mystique will reveal and hit the Cerebro. What I mean, just don't play the Lizard first.
I get what you're saying. But on that note, too, the unrevealed aspect is just super unique and different to Snap, and it's definitely going to be exciting to see what we can hide from trying to deliver on turn 6, and then what comes out as the most effective on turn 5. Now, Alex, a lot of great things. Super excited about Supergiant. We both are kind of we got to test it out. We got to see where it lands. I would say this was the most divisive card amongst the viewers.
It's an Atuma buff, technically. You can play Atuma back there.
Hey, yo, look at Atuma going places, dude. Well, speaking of Atuma with 410, and speaking of the word power creep, we have probably the easiest to discuss, but let's bring them up. Cull Obsidian, guys, is a 4-cost 10 power card. You can only play this where you have a 1 cost card. 10 power, man. Listen, that's a ton of cheese, buddy. For a Zabu, it's a 310. However, Shang-Chi's got like a 75% play rate or something like that. So you got to remember that it's just not safe. But when you're looking and comparing it to something like Typhoid F and Mary that nukes the board on your side, this is just great stats.
I think there's potential in like a Thanos-based Zoo deck. Honestly, the 410 stat line with like an armor or something like that, I don't think is crazy. You can even play him in conjunction with something like a Cosmo, but I don't think you'd really want to do that. I think armor is the safest, most natural play. Honestly, like off the top, like I was really flipping between. Okay, at first I rated him 2 stars, and then I rated him 4 stars. And I'm like, he's got to be a 3-star card. And I'm like, wait a minute, it's 410. It's 410. If they have to commit Shang-Chi to it, that means they don't have Shang-Chi for Blob, or they don't have Shang-Chi for something else. If he's eating the Shang-Chi, maybe he's doing his job. He's a 4-star. And then I'm like, wait a minute, this condition's not even that hard. I started spiraling, Cozy.
Dude.
I'm not even sure what I'm going to give it.
Dude,
I'm talking myself in and out of all this. I'm going 4-star. That's what I wanted to say in the first place.
I've deleted so many. I was like 4.5, 2.5. 3.5. And then even here, I'm decommitting from what I had here at 3.5. I guess I'll join you on 4 because, yes, I get it. Shang-Chi. Totally get it, guys. But apparently, from what I've read, you can play down a 1-cost card and then him. It doesn't have to be on the same turn. From what I've read, it does. And I think I read this in a dev update. If I'm wrong, guys, whatever. But I'm pretty sure I saw that. We've never seen that. We've never seen a condition met like that before. And if that's the case, dude, yeah, just playing him with the Zabu decks already, where you get to play a Shang-Chi and a Cull Obsidian to just win the game, right? Playing 10 power, dude. This has a lot of cool synergy behind it. It's beefy. It's obviously a ton of power, amping them up. We got some strong synergies, obviously Thanos. But Alex, let's just get right to it, buddy. Our last season pass card. Something like Scar likes this a lot, right? Clearly, something like Scar can just benefit off this right off the rip. Wasn't a lot of 4-cost drops to make that happen. So this is a synergy that I definitely will be pairing up with the old Cole.
Buddy, I was actually thinking about like the play lines. And what if like, okay, just keep it simple. What if you Iceman turn 1, whenever on turn 2, Daredevil, we've been talking about Daredevil tonight, so let's bring Daredevil back. Turn 3, you Storm. Right? Turn 4, you slam a 410 there. They can't even Shang-Chi in that location because it's flooded, right? That's one way to deal with it.
Yep.
Right? And then guess what? Scar's now a 4-cost. It seems like just easy value, right? I really do see this card like, yes, Shang-Chi exists. And yeah, it's always going to exist. It's always going to be, just assume everyone's running the card. But like, don't forget, there's also Zabu synergy. Like this card is pretty damn legit.
Black Knight, Nebula, Sunspot, all these cards. There's every single deck, Loki, they all have 1 cost in there. I mean, just speaking of Black Knight right there, like whatever, you discard it or you play it on your Black Knight's location. Fantastic, right? Hey, let's go effing crazy. You Moon Girl, a Scar, Cull Obsidian deck. All of a sudden, you've got all kinds of crazy stuff because you have the Zabu down. You can play down Cull Obsidian. You got 2 Scars. You can Moon Girl that. I think there's a lot of interesting power decks that can be made with Cull Obsidian. Definitely cool. A lot of other cards that synergize with it. Without a doubt, I'm with you, buddy. I'm with you on just the pure power stat line. And honestly, just going to be a nice card to flex in. But man, can we just take a second? I don't know if you have a beverage nearby.
I know what you're gonna do. I cannot believe. Yeah, just pour one out. Pour 1-0 for Crossbones. Honestly, like what a disaster,
hell, dude. What? Like at the very least, make him a 4/9, right? Like that's just what a disaster, bro. Like this card just takes a what I would imagine what a Cull Obsidian dump looks like, which is probably filthy on Crossbones.
It's got to be disgusting.
Just disgusting, man. And then can we just say, oh yeah, Thanos decks, by the way, that love Lockjaw and popping out big cards like Blob, all of it. Thanos is gonna be crazy. I can't even get to him. Gonna just be nuts. Cull Obsidian, though, we're about the same place here. He's gonna be hot. He's gonna be good.
Why is it 4/8? Like this, okay, Cull Obsidian's requirement to have a 1-cost card there, I actually don't think is that hard. But I tend to be a little more like curvy when I design my decks. So I always have 1-drops. But like with Crossbones, that is legitimately hard to do sometimes. And it can be detrimental in like on a turn 6 where you're like, man, I actually need to put power there. Crossbones is a 4/8. I could use 8 power there, but I'm losing by 1 because they put a power stone there or whatever. And damn it, I could play Cull Obsidian. I can't play. Like, Why is Crossbones a 4/8? It can't stay like that, right? There's no way Crossbones is 4/8 when Cull Obsidian launches.
No,
It just can't happen.
Yeah, I just don't see it, especially like last turn potential and stuff. Like being able to play Cull Obsidian, most likely, you know, in a location that you've set up in advance or whatever. And Crossbones, you're like, well, I'm losing 2. I can play him here. It's just bad. It's just bad all around, man. It's sad to see. And I would actually call this more power creep on things like Crossbone than Black Swan is on some of the other, you know, 3/5s that we've got. But yeah, Cull Obsidian, good God, gonna be a fun one. We got 2 more cards left, Alex. These are gonna be crazy, and I saw these ranked all over the place. People couldn't agree on it. Corvus Glaive. Now, guys, Corvus is a 3-cost, 5 power, premium stat line, yet again. But on reveal, discard 2 cards from your hand to get, and to make it easy, guys, the Electro effect. +1 max energy every single turn. Corvus Glaive, I'll start us out, man. This is probably my excited, like, this is probably the card that gets me super excited, because I do think there's going to be way more use for him than just discard. I truly think even if it's just shining in discard, he's going to shine to the fullest degree. I love Corvus. I got him around a 4.
Whoa.
Yep.
Whoa. We're
Yep.
up.
Probably
we're
4.
Up. I give him 2.
You gave him 2? Okay, I allow you to
Yeah.
get the floor. That's fine. Yeah. I like it. I like when we have like a huge difference of opinion. Why do you hate him?
Why do I hate him? I hate him because I don't like him in the MCU. No, I'd hate him because I don't actually hate him. I feel like the extra energy is a trap. Like, okay, if you really want to sell me on that he's playable outside of like discard, then like I'm here for that. That might change my mind. But I don't see him being playable outside of discard. Because like realistically, if you're playing a Ram style deck, you're playing 5s and 6s. I don't care what anyone says. The Electro effect has never been an issue for me. Like your deck is designed to only play 1 card at a time anyways, right? And I love when people like will like Death Domain and Electro and snap, be like, oh, I got freedom, and then they continue to play like, you know, Dr. Doom Odin. It's like, it wouldn't have mattered, man. But like, okay, the decks are designed for that. I could not come up with maybe I'm wrong, but I was like, when does discard ever want to play MODOK a turn early?
Yeah.
Usually never. When does he want to play Apocalypse a turn early? Usually never. I was like, when does this extra energy actually matter in the standard discard deck? I was playing with my lines. I'm like, I don't think it does. And I feel like on turn 3, it's probably a hell of a risk to drop a card that discards 2. Even if you have Swarm there, it's like, well, there goes my MODOK. It's like, damn it. Or like, I just don't see the lines where this card's good.
Hellcow is what, a 4/8 now? A 4/8. Crossbones, man. God, he's in shambles. Hellcow's a 4/8. You're getting 3/5. So let's just look at it for stats as a discard engine, right? Fueling up Morbius, fueling up obviously the biggest ones, and that are cards that want to be discarded. Now, what are those cards? Clearly, Proxima Midnight. We'll get to that. He's going to be even better when that card comes out. But get off the screen, Crossbones. But we've got what you've alluded to. Swarm and Apocalypse. I've played more discard than just about any season before it this season. Played a lot of discard, man. Had a lot of fun with it. So much so I was playing with Gambit decks, right? So I definitely know the chaos engine of like what's happening. Dude, hitting APOC and hitting Swarm and just reaping the benefits, you get what you're saying. Superflow, having a free Superflow in your discard deck is not going to increase the engine of the capabilities of what it can pump out. I absolutely disagree. I think there are a ton of different ways that you can utilize that extra energy, and there's nothing bad happening to your side. In fact, you're fueling your side even more. There will be games you get rid of your MODOK, but that's okay because now we have additional ways to continue to get things rolling with Corvus and then Proxima Midnight, most importantly, right? That's going to be built into that package. So just talking about discard, I think there's just a world of different use that you can play and utilize that +1 energy. It just looks different. We're in a different world of discard. That would be my argument for him in the discard. I'll let you get to that before we get to the general play lines.
That's fair. And we haven't talked about Proxima yet, so that is fair with Proxima, right? Relationship goals, y'all. But what I will say, though, is that, like, there's a reason why Swordmaster's not played. Don't forget Swordmaster exists. It's a 3/6, and it discards 1. It doesn't give extra energy, but it's a 3/6, one of the best stat lines at the 3 costs, but it's never played. Why is that? Because it's random BS. There's a reason why Sif is preferred. There's a reason why Calling Wing is preferred, that targeted discard effect. And even Hellcow, until it was buffed immensely to a 4/8, got cut from everything because of the randomness of the effect. I was just like, you know what, maybe, I'm not sold. I feel like the extra energy might be a trap.
3/6 is horse crap compared to a 3/5 with +1/+1/+1 energy if you get to play them on curve. And think about it, just Proxima Midnight is a big key ticket, and it's the next card we'll talk about because it gives you yet another card that it's completely fine. Completely fine. And let's say Blade goes out, you kill a Swarm turn 1, you get 2 Swarms, you have the APOC in there. The risk is not as big as you might think moving forward from it. And a lot of this could shift into a control style discard deck as well, something like Storm, because of Proxima Midnight coming out there. You could have some more fuel to the fire with that as well. I just feel like it has a place massively in discard, way more so than Meek. And we gave Meek like a 2.5, I think, or a 3-star. No way I can settle on that. And then if I look at the other, effects around it, I want to give him a 4. Let's get to it. Now, I'm going to go ahead and probably just have you leave the podcast when I show the next card. This is not the card I was referring to. I just want to throw it out there. I just want to say this. Hey, buddy. Agatha.
Okay, here we are.
Agatha. Here we are. But tell me why. Tell me why. And Agatha's okay. She's not the worst card nowadays. Is Corvus not the actual literal definition of the perfect Agatha card?
Yeah, it's going to be perfect when he discards Agatha and Ghost Rider. You're going to love it.
Yeah, oh my gosh. But then you also, but hear me out, right? So let's say he gets rid of Agatha. Great. If he doesn't get rid of Agatha, then you have the +1 energy, and then you get to play Agatha on 5, getting control at turn 6.
It's fair. It's a very fair statement.
I think, and the stat line on Agatha is obviously really good. Agatha's been playing these cards that have value no matter what. I'm not saying Agatha's going to be an amazing deck. I just thought it was really cool to see that synergy like right off the rip. It's not why I'm giving him a 4-star. Maybe I'm full cope. I like 4-star here, and I think that's, I'm going to die on that. By the way, Hela, just saying. I think Hela's kind of cool too. Tell me, Hela and Corvus also have a pretty unique relationship where you can have a deck that's already pop full of these crazy big cards. And oh yeah, Hela is, as we said, just in a insane spot at Snap at the moment anyway.
Okay. All right. Okay, I see it. Because then maybe, if miraculously Hela does not get discarded, you've discarded 2 Chonkies, right? You discarded like a Mr. Magneto, and you've also discarded a Giganto. That feels pretty good. And if you do discard Hela, and you do discard Magneto, then you have your Giganto you can play on turn 5, right? Maybe it's like a new evolved version of like the Lockjaw-based Gamble deck, but you don't play Lockjaw, you just play Corvus. And you say, hey, I hit a bunch of stuff, but here we go. Big chonky boys coming down. Here, oh, look at Orca. Look what he's doing, right? I don't know.
I'm here for it. I think Corvus is gonna have a place, but that is where it takes us to Proxima Midnight. Now, this is a card that people either like had her at the lowest ranking or they liked her a ton. And maybe, dude, I'm just on the straight discard copium juice. But Proxima Midnight, when this is discarded, jumps to your lowest powered location that isn't full. She's a 4/7. 4/7. Good stat line. Definitely love it. You're a 4/7, bro. A 4/7 that you're just getting for absolute free with the MODOK play, with the Corvus play, with the Blade play on turn 2. What are we thinking about Proxima?
I think it's a bar with no name buff.
Yeah, the one time that location hits you.
I just wanted to say it because someone has to say it. I think it's a cool card. I really like the card's design. I really like the idea of like having this controlled discard style effect that it gets discarded. It goes to the lowest power location, allows you to attack that. But there are 2 things I want to bring up about this card that's been bothering me and kind of impacting my ability to give it a rank. I'm giving it a 3 stars, by the way, which is a conservative. I'm not too sure where it's going to end up ranked. 1. Dracula is often your lowest powered location, but you often don't need power there, right? Like, that's the one factor. Dracula's sitting as a 4/1. You know that ain't a 4/1, right? That's going to do some damage later. Proxima is a wasted proc into that location. That's one consideration, right? And 2, I mean, I'd like to hear your thoughts on this, Cozy, but like, Black Cat's a 4/9.
Yeah, but you have to play another card to really activate her, like technically activate her. That's fair. Hey, both those are fair points. Funny enough, if I go to Dracula, because that's actually where I wanted to start, why would you not? I think this synergy is actually beautiful because I think this is finally bringing back some of the dependable discard yet again. Dracula, who I've been loving lately, would go ahead and discard her. He would become a 4/8 at that point if that was the last card that you were able to get down. And hey, we've already played Corvus maybe, so you could play APOC early. You could play whatever you need to do with that. Then he's a 4/8. She lands to another location or with Dracula, because that's fine too. And all of a sudden, you're getting Dracula becoming, what is that now, a 15 power play? That's fair. That seems awesome to me. Absolutely awesome. And by the way, obviously, we could just say MODOK. Like, clearly just a MODOK play, zapping it all, getting the free points on it. You know, maybe you don't get to play Dracula down and you just get Proxima. With Corvus, with Dracula and Proxima Midnight, I'm telling you, I think discard's going to be feasting.
Yeah, there's a lot of discard synergy here. And I mean, even to some degree, you could make the argument that Supergiant could be used in discard as well to actually like flip the order of your plays and stuff like that, which could be really interesting. But like, okay, hold on. Maybe I don't like doing the 0.5s like you do sometimes. I like full committing to a star. I'm going to stay 3, but I can see myself saying at the end, the start of the next season, be like, you know, it's a 4-star card. It's a 4-star card, because like it really is a cool effect. I really do think the effect is interesting. I think it's valuable for discard to have this targeted discard style effect, like from an actual discarding perspective. Because I don't know about you, the amount of times I've played Hela and we won't even work in Hela because it will never go. It's never discarded truly, right? It like leaves your hand and just hits the board, right?
Yeah. To me, if you look at all the cards we have in the game, there's only like 2 or 3 that want to be discarded. So this is actually like a huge addition, right? We've gotten these targeted discards. Now we finally have something that says, hey, hit me, right? Like Moon Knight, actually, funny enough, Moon Knight maybe can fit into this mold, right? Because it's like, hey, it's okay. Because if I'm defending Corvus Glaive, I got to say, okay, well then some of these more risky cards might finally have a bit more of a home. Because now if you have Swarm, APOC, and Midnight in the hand, or even 2 of those, you're looking a lot better, right? Because you have way more targets. Now, if you are like anyone else in the Snap community, it's taking your best card every time, period. It's always that way. It's the one that you're like not looking at. We talked about this last week, begging for it not to be discarded. However, I think now that we can have more of these, and they have to be careful how many they put in, it could elevate cards. Obviously, Silver Samurai may not work here because of just the way she's statted, but I think this is going to go a long way.
Yeah, and technically she's a 4/9 if you consider the Mobius effect. Not Mobius. Morbius, right? Morbius is on the board. Discard 2 power over there. She comes down as a 4/7, 9 power overall. And she might actually be good with like a Gambit. Because like, again, Gambit, you don't like, you just put Gambit on the screen.
Hey,
unbelievable timing, Cozy.
A 3/10? Pretty sure that's so, double Black Swan. Oh, guess what? And you destroy a card. Dude, that's like it's a 3, let's say it's a squirrel. It's a 3, or like a Nightcrawler, okay? 3/12. But then anything higher, you start to get to pretty nutty territory.
I like how you gold split this this variant, by the way. Very, very good choice. And I will tell you as well, the one thing about Gambit is that I feel like you like to play him later because you hit a higher profile target often, right?
Yep.
But playing him on curve, potentially hitting Wolverine, Swarm, or Proxima, like that's not bad, man. That's decent value.
So Gambit, I will spoil this, and I can talk more in extent later. But he is my favorite 3-cost card. This on your side, right? Like period. Because it's like, oh, you played Zabu, let me kill it. You get value early or late. Like, you can pick your poison. The only time where Gambit, you're like, damn, is when it's destroyed. And you're like, okay, don't miss on turn 6 on the Knoll. Like, that's kind of the best you got going for it. And then it hits the Wolverine twice or whatever it is. But yeah, I think Gambit has a lot to offer here. It's just these random cards that you just brought up, Swordmaster. Who knows? Maybe because we have more of these targets, we start to introduce this a bit more, and you can get Mobius out. Morbius. I'm going to screw that up for the rest of my life. But you can get Morbius out on curve, Blade out on curve, things like that. It'll be interesting to see how much this truly does elevate it. And lastly, man, do we think there are builds where you double up and you want 14 power that you can get for free, and then you discard a ton with MODOK? Is that a world that exists?
Could be. Like you do you do like a Zabu into Moon Girl into just like Dracula, and then you just MODOK into Apoc. I don't know. That seems like very, hey, I drew the perfect hand. Look at me snap. But like I can see the potential, definitely. I can definitely see it working.
So either way, yeah, that with the Storm, that with Moon Girl, unpredictable discard. We're going to get a lot more working all together in unison, and I think that's what the last 2 have me excited. And fun fact, I'm not alone here. On Twitter, we got a great amount of responses, buddy, for the Snapchat. Like one half had Corvus and Proxima 1 and 2. The other half, 4 and 5. Like there was just no middle ground. And so I'm excited to see kind of how these flush out all together. However, buddy, that's going to end it for us on the new cards. Let's take it to the OTA. We'll be quick, not the craziest OTA for a reason. We have the balance patch. We have the new cards coming out. I think they wanted to be tame. It was a healthy meta already. Hey, guess what, man? They finally caught up with us. Heimdall got 9 power. I saw that, and I thought of you immediately, man. I was like...
Yeah, we called it.
We called that
it on
the day
Snapchat.
Shang-Chi got nerfed, right?
Yeah, absolutely. We had been saying as soon as Shang-Chi got changed, we've been talking about Heimdall being a 9 power for the longest time.
Yeah.
I specifically remember saying Heimdall needs to be a 6/9. Nice. I've said it like 6 times on this podcast.
What about Ghost? What do you feel about Ghost?
That one's confusing to me. Like that one, I was like, you know what? Like the only person I know that plays Ghost was my brother because it was an ongoing card and he only plays Spectrum decks. And so like I had a 1 drop and it was like good in those types of decks, right? And with a bit being a 1 drop as well, you could sneak it into like kind of like Valkyrie based shells. I mean, the card was irrelevant ultimately, and it's probably going to stay that way.
Yeah, it's just tough. Like, what list does it belong in, especially in this meta? I do agree. How about 2099 as a 5/9?
I mean, 5/9 is statistically better than 4/6, but I don't know. I don't know if it does enough for the card.
I think it's cool. I think Move needs a Null and or Morbius for it to be competitive, period. I think it has to happen.
I think this text ultimately changes to be it destroys the highest power card in a location, and it's like a 4/6 or something.
Well,
that's what I think ultimately ends up happening.
Hot damn, that's what I want now. And then finally, the old Hulkbuster, buddy, which I think, listen, it did nothing. It did nothing. It did nothing. But did you see that on the website, they leaked that Venom was supposed to go to a 4/5? I'm not going to lie. I don't hate a 4/5 Venom. I think it's kind of interesting. Do you think that would kill the archetype? I think I'm glad they didn't do it, but I also think it's definitely interesting.
So I didn't see that. So you're hitting me right off the cuff here. I didn't know that Venom was proposed to be a 4/5.
So the notes, when you know, like the notes go on the website or whatever, it was like Venom. The reason we nerfed him to a 4/5 is because of XYZ. It was like a whole paragraph, and then that never happened. And apparently they said that they were going to do that, and then they didn't, or whatever. They didn't like go into it too much. But Venom dodged a bullet. Venom dodged a giant bullet there. However, I typically play my Venom past pretty late anyway, right? And you can still combo him with Carnage and whatnot for your Nimrod deck or whatever.
Yeah, I don't see 4/5 being an issue. If anything, it's just additional power for the card. Because you're right, you never play Venom on 3. Like when are you playing Venom on 3? Never.
Yeah,
right? Because you're playing Deadpool Hulkbuster on 3.
And then, of course, we got Luke Cage at the end here. We're gonna talk about it, man. He has returned, the resurrection. Truly, I don't mind him as a 3 cost, but I forgot how much value he actually brings, right?
Oh, he's an immense card. And I really like that Second Dinner is doing this. Like, okay, hold on. We can't have these board range effects on 2 costs. Let's give Kyra a 3 stat line. Let's give Luke Cage a 3 stat line. That's a fair cost for affecting the entire board. He was awful before. I'm glad Luke is back.
Yeah, 100%. And then it also like revives cards like Lizard, Typhoid Mary, just like I would draft them, right? I'm like, okay, great. We have location control like against things like even like Quantum Tunnel or whatever that sets it to 2 or what realm, Quantum Realm. There's too many locations. But yeah, love Luke Cage. Definitely the winner of the patch. Well, dude, all I know is we got ourselves the big week ahead. We have a lot to break down there, and it's surely going to be just mixing in 2 new cards with crazy effects, a whole new patch with a bunch of card with ability changes. I am sure of it. And we have a lot to talk about next week. Looking forward to it. We also have a lot to talk about on Alex's side of the Snapchat, where we are going to be doing our January final rankings, where we look at what we ranked them on something just like this. And then we come back with our final evaluations of the card. Favorite cards this season, and always one of the best topics we get to talk about. And finally, the Snapchat mailbag. Thank you guys for tuning in. Good luck in the new Black Order season. Until the next one, happy snapping, guys.